Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Matura Express after a quite long Christmas break. My name is Karina, and I have the pleasure tonight to talk you through two trial exams about the topic environment. Okay, so first off, here is the plan for tonight. As I said, it will be two demonstration exams. Those of you who have been following the show for a while know a slightly different format up until, or last year basically. There was only one exam. Now there's two exams. They will be related topic-wise, so both exams are about environmental pollution, but they do have two different focal points. One thing that I'd like to mention right at the beginning, in the demo exams, there will be demonstration exams for every topic that there is. In the demonstration exams, we will not be able to cover all the aspects that there are to a topic. So today we are talking about alternative energies, for example, and about fossil fuels, hate that word, and so on and so forth. We will, in our exams, Tim and myself, we will try to cover as many aspects as possible. I will try and ask her questions that are, that help you to kind of see what aspects that there are to a topic, but then we can never cover everything. Like a 15 minutes exam doesn't, you can't cover that much ground, especially because there is an introduction section of a couple of minutes where you kind of introduce yourself. So there's definitely not enough time to cover all the aspects. Bear that in mind, please, even though we will, of course, do our best to touch upon as many aspects as possible. Good. So for tonight's stream, for the first one, or no, for both of them actually, I will show you the exam tasks prior to the actual exams. Then we will do the talking, so that will be the 15 minutes speaking time, exam time. And I will then do a discussion of both exams at the end. So I will not, so the questions, like what was good about the exam, what could be improved, what did not go that well. I will briefly summarize everything at the end of both streams. So that's the plan for tonight. So first I'll show you the exam task. First things first, this is the first task that Timna has to do. By the way, she's over there. She kind of said hi.
Yeah, I'll say hi later.
She'll say hi later. She'll have to introduce herself anyway, so you'll get to know her much closer. Okay, so the first question is about environment and pollution, with a focus on global warming. Environment and pollution is a very broad topic. There is environmental pollution, there's sea pollution, there's air pollution, there's noise pollution, there's water pollution. There's so many different ways of destroying the earth that we can never touch upon all of them. The first exam focuses on global warming because that is one of the most imminent issues, one of the most pressing ones. So first off, there's the introduction part. You will be asked some questions about your career and future plans. The point of this section is to give you a good start, to give you a topic to talk about that is easy for you to talk about. We tend to be quite good at talking about ourselves, really. It's something that you can plan beforehand as well. You can kind of plan what you're going to tell the exam boards. They will ask you about previous work experiences. They'll probably ask you why you decided to do the Matura, because what do you want? Did you do it just for fun, or because you don't have anything else to do on your evenings but attend classes, or during the day whenever you do them? Future plans. So what's the plan with the Matura? Do you want to change jobs? Do you want to go to university? Whatever. You can plan that, of course, so that they don't catch you off guard. So make sure what you say sounds well prepared or is well prepared. There's a monologue. So it's you speaking. You have a situation, as always. In this case, you are proving to the world that you're a very good person because you volunteered to do some charity work for Greenpeace. You're still in school. You need money alongside school, and you know there's always those people running around in the streets, working for charity organizations, earning money by doing good things. You've been asked to hold a talk in your school, so the audience, the examiners obviously, about the issue of global warming, as this is one of the most pressing ones at the moment, and you are the expert on it because you're working for Greenpeace, so that's the connections. That's the connection, sorry. Your task in the monologue, so when it's only you talking, a definition of global warming, like what is it? The causes of global warming, why is everyone talking about it? Why is it such an important topic? Who is to blame? Is it the people? Is it factories? Is it countries? Like, you know, there's treaties in the world going on. There's like agreements that countries stick or don't stick to, whatever. The impact of globalization on global warming goes in the same direction. So global warming, multinational companies, the bigger the better. Does that have an influence on globalization? Yes or no? Probably yes, as it is in the topic. Number 2, task 2 of the same length, also about approximately 3 to 4 minutes. As always, like you're doing a talk, and what normally happens after a talk is people saying, well, are there any questions? That's what you should be doing as well. You open up the discussion. Your audience in our trial exam, I'll be the audience and I'll be the one to ask questions. Use the information from the attached text. In your exams, you'll get a link to a text, as well as your own ideas, which is very important as well, because you hopefully did some preparation work beforehand and should be able to add ideas. And then there's a follow-up discussion. Well, she's the examinee today, I'm the examiner, so in the follow-up discussion, I will just ask her a couple of questions about global warming, about, I don't know, I could also refer back to the situation and ask her what she thinks about Greenpeace, if it's like worth, if an environmental charity is like worth joining or not, and so on and so forth, like some more personal questions about the topic. Are you ready?
I am.
Well then.
Hello, everybody.
That's her. I've been talking about her so much, and there she is.
I think you know me by now.
You've seen the exam now.
Yes.
I suppose that you guys out there are going to follow our discussion. There will be a link to the text that I chose for her. Like, we both have the text.
In the live chat right now.
Perfect. It is a text of like, whoop. You can't see that, can you? But that's what the text looks like. It's a text taken out of a magazine, and it's quite, well, I personally think like it gives you a lot of bullet points, a lot of like kind of an enumerative type of text, which I find quite nice for the summary, for the preparation time, because you have short sentences, you have not all too much information in one paragraph kind of thing. The problem is that you should always try and summarize text in your own words, which is harder if you only have sentences of like with a very limited number of words, or if you only have bullet points really and finished sentences. So yeah, you'd be well off if you kind of used your 30 minutes preparation time wisely, and you know, try to summarize the text in such a manner that you can work with it and also use your own words. As I said, you'll have a link in the live stream because my background is doing a fab job. So we're gonna start right away, if you don't mind.
I don't.
So you have decided to take your A-levels in English tonight.
Yes, exactly.
Pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
Would you mind to just very quickly introduce yourself? So your name, what you did before you started the Matura project, and what you want to do with it. Like,
Okay.
must be a reason to it.
So my name is Timna. I am 20 years old, and I am a beautician at a wellness hotel.
Nice.
And right now I would like to do the Matura, obviously. Because I thought maybe at some point in my life, maybe I'd like to study or take some courses that might help me open my own studio or my own salon, and that's why I thought it might be a good idea to do the Matura.
Sounds like a feasible thing to do.
Yes.
Working in a hotel sounds like a job where you need English every now and then.
Exactly. So I really do need a lot of English skills because there's a lot of international guests at our hotel. Also, quite a few celebrities actually, and
Nice.
so that's why there's always the English skills always do come in very handy.
So having to speak today in front of an audience is nothing new for you. It's nothing like all
I
too.
hope so.
Well then, let's see. So you introduced yourself. Now you have a situation. So you're changing personality, kind of thing. Could you just quickly tell us who you are?
Of course. So I work for Greenpeace, and my job is to go around to different types of audiences and tell them about global warming and about these issues that are happening right now.
Well then, we are all ears and looking forward to some information.
All right. So as I just said, I'm here today to talk to you about global warming. So maybe let's just start with what is global warming actually. Global warming is the rise of the Earth's temperature and the effects that it has on humanity and on the Earth. So there's a lot of different things that cause global warming, but the biggest factors really are man-made factors. For example, pollution, like from cars, planes, what have you. Deforestation, landfills. Surprisingly, there's also quite a lot of like pollution from methane produced by animals, which is also a part of global warming. You wouldn't think that it's that big, but it's actually not that small, which is quite interesting, I thought. Yeah, so but the biggest factors really are man-made, which is really what many of us don't think about when we're sitting in our cars alone, driving to work or driving 5 minutes because we're too lazy to walk, for example, or leaving the lights on or whatever to increase global warming without really realizing it or knowing it. And that's why I'm here to tell you and to maybe make you, I don't know, a bit more aware of those kinds of problems. So what impact has does global warming have? Or actually, might I say, global warming, as maybe we wouldn't think, has a lot to do with globalization actually. As there are there's big companies today that are getting bigger and bigger and that are getting more and more, who are operating all around the world. For example, big names like, I don't know, big drugstore brands or big clothing brands or food brands, anything like that you can think of. They're all operating internationally, which means that there's lots of products produced in one place usually, and then they're getting transported into all different parts of the world. And through all of that transport, all of those trucks, planes, all of those transportations produce exhaust fumes, greenhouse gases, which then again impact the global warming. So what we could, for example, do is try and support local businesses, support local small brands that we know that get produced locally as well, which does help a lot to reduce global warming, or at least maybe stop it. Yeah, that's really the basic information I wanted to give you today. Is there any questions?
Well, yeah, you actually, of course, there are like a lot of asking questions after discussions. That's my thing. You mentioned locally produced stuff.
Yes.
isn't it that most people are maybe because they have to, because they don't have that much money, or just because they want to? But don't you think that people always go for the cheapest product?
Of course.
Local produce is usually more expensive, isn't it?
Of course, that's the problem here. But if we really think about our future, and if we think about what impact our decision is having on the world and on our children, on our grandchildren, then we might reconsider maybe not just buying the cheapest, but also looking at where it's produced, where it's come from. So yeah, of course it always depends on your budget, but if you can, try and spend a bit more and think about the future.
What could happen? Like you told us about the causes and basically about like who is to blame for global warming. But what would you say are the effects that we see now, or that we have to live with now?
Well, we hear about a lot of effects actually now, which is, for example, lots and lots of floods, droughts, all kinds of natural disasters that are happening more and more often. Hurricanes, storms, all of that is all caused by global warming. The sea levels are rising, there are animals going extinct or moving to different places because there's no room anymore for them, or the climate is getting too hot for them. There's all kinds of changes and problems that are really right in front of our faces that we can see right now.
If you ask Donald Trump, there is no such thing as global warming. You could just,
That's just a whole different topic we could all talk about for hours.
Especially the whole natural disaster stuff.
Oh yeah.
He'd be very adamant about pointing out that it's always been like that.
Yeah,
really.
He's
so
special.
that's
guy.
well, yeah.
Yeah.
We know that. Could you point out any, because you mentioned that there's animals that are in danger, kind of. Could you, examples? Would it affect, I don't know, our deer in the forest, or?
Well, for example, let's say penguins, for example, are having to move because the ice caps are melting. So there's less and less space for them. So they're really having to move a lot and leaving their territory basically because it's not there anymore. So, and then if they don't have lots of space anymore, they can't live, they die, and they go extinct, which is, for example, really terrible.
That's what I like.
Yeah. Because
you're working for Greenpeace, and
yes, of course, that's
Greenpeace has own ships that go to the Arctic and the Antarctic every now and then and do stuff there, don't they?
Exactly.
Yeah, well, I guess that's for polar bears and penguins. The whole thing doesn't go down that well, really.
No, it doesn't really.
Is Austria that much affected, really, would you say? Or I guess there are countries that are more affected than Austria, isn't there?
Well, I guess every country is really affected the same. I think, for example, if you look at the weather, which is really not that important of an issue, but with the weather you can see, or you can realize that global warming is actually true. If you think about, maybe let's say 10, 20 years ago, the winters were a lot colder, there was lots of snow.
Right.
How about the winters today? There's really, there is snow, but maybe for a month or two, and that's it. And it's a little bit, and it doesn't stay. Which means that the winters are getting warmer and warmer, and also the summers are getting warmer, and there's more kind of fluctuations in temperatures, and the weather is not as stable anymore.
That's true.
Which is, all those factors point to a rise of global warming. So,
punchline of the whole thing is we should, start and
it's high time.
Do something.
Yes.
I guess that Austria is, I have quite a lot of friends abroad and stuff, and they would always tell me that they think that Austria is very much related to nature, and that we love our nature and our mountains. And do you think that's true? Do you, from your experience, do the Austrians do?
Well, but do they like nature, or do they also
do something to protect it? Yeah.
I feel like they think they do, but they really, every Austrian specifically doesn't do that much. I feel like we all like our national parks and our mountains and all of that, but then again we still go with our car every day alone. Every person has their own car. I don't know, we still like go skiing in the Alps where there's lots of animals who we might need the space. We of course there's national parks and all of that, which is great, but I feel like the individual Austrian doesn't really do that much, or well, maybe more than in other countries, but still.
How do you get to school in the morning? As we were talking about like measures to, reduce the whole thing.
Well, I get to school by bus.
Okay. So because you don't have a car, or because?
Well, of course it is also because I am thinking about the environment, but also I can't really afford a car, and if you live in a big city, you don't need a car. It's actually quicker to get around by bus.
That's true.
Or public transport.
Anything else? Okay, that question's not gonna go. Is there anything else that you would, something that we can all do for the environment that is kind of easy? Like, we can't all join Greenpeace at the end of the day. But is there something that we can all do? Like one or two tips that everyone can follow?
There's little things that you don't really even think about in your daily routine that you can do. You can, when you leave a room, think about switching off the lights, or actually remembering to switch off the lights and not leaving them on when nobody's in there. Think about not leaving the water running while you're brushing your teeth, or not just standing in the shower, leaving the water running while you're basically just thinking about life, which many people are guilty of.
Which that's a nice thing to do, really. But
think about the penguins.
That's a good one. Thinking about penguins and polar bears always works.
Really small things that you can do. Maybe also turn off the heating in the rooms that you don't use as much, or turn it down at least. Those would be things that you can do very easily.
That's true. Sounds like we should actually, first of all do something, and should probably stop putting forward like random excuses that that we can't really. Well then, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And goodbye.
Goodbye. Do you need the tablet?
No, not really. No. Regardless of what I said in the beginning, because I just remembered that maybe the format of the streams is going to change slightly. I will quickly tell you now what I liked about this one particular exam, because I guess it doesn't really make sense at the end of the day to like criticize the exam afterwards. One thing that I noticed, one thing that I really liked about the exam, or that I thought was good, is the fact that she was kind of trying to make references to her situation. So she was kind of always and constantly talking about, or constantly, she once or twice mentioned that she's working for Greenpeace, and that's her situation, and that she's kind of an expert in what she's saying and what she's doing, which is kind of quite good, because first of all, you should always constantly remind yourself that you're playing a role, and you have to stick to that role, because otherwise, the whole exam situation doesn't really work anymore. So it has to be one like coherent exam situation. So referencing back to, guys, I'm from Greenpeace and I kind of know what I'm talking about, and my work for Greenpeace kind of taught me that, or because I work for Greenpeace, I get the impression that blah, blah, blah. Stuff like that is quite helpful, because then you prove that you really are in your situation, that you can also remember the situation, and you kind of reference back to that. Well, the exam was quite well structured, but then it's like you have so many different bullet points, and there's so many changes. You change from a monologue to a dialogue, and then it's kind of a discussion. So it's probably tendentially quite easy to follow the exams in general. So structure is very important. Use linking devices as well. if you change from, like, I don't know, she was talking about the definition of global warming first, and then there were the causes of global warming. Let your audience know that that you're changing the topic. So maybe use a bit more, or make use of some more linking devices. So, and now I'm gonna, you know, or furthermore, there is also another point that is important, and so on and so forth, so that your audience knows that you're changing the topic, because there will be extra points for, or there will be points for structure in the exam. Yeah, what I also thought was really nice was the remark with the cows, and the fact that cows produce a lot of methane gases, whatever. That is actually an argument, like people do say that, which is why there's also the argument out there that the production of meat and the fact that so many people eat meat and that there's not that many vegetarians really, that this contributes to global warming. The connection might not be immediately visible, but it's a thing. And what her remark about the cows also did was kind of lighten it up a little bit. It was, you know, a fun thing to say and a fun remark. Maybe a bit much to ask in an exam to try and be funny as well. But then at the end of the day, your situation is to like hold a talk about something. So if there's something witty, something decently funny that, you know, comes to your mind, feel free to say it. Yeah, I think that was it. Yep, that was it for the first one. And we are changing the topic slightly. Let me see where. So that again, that was the exam, global warming. That's what the exam paper looks like. Very structured. So at the bottom of your exam, you'll always have the link to the text, which is now online. Yeah, that's the second one. So the topic again is about the environment, but now we are not talking about global warming anymore or any longer. Now it's about something that we can do in order to like protect the environment, save the environment, because we can resort from fossil fuels to alternative energies. That's always the like two sides of the thing. On the one hand, there's the fossil fuels like coal, oil and gas. And on the other hand, there are all the alternative options, wind power, solar power, whatever. So it's always this binary opposition between the two. Structure is the same thing as before. There'll be some questions about your career, your future plans, and so on and so forth, as always, to give you a good start. This time we changed the location, so we are not in Austria anymore, which is important because in the questions, like in the exam before, I asked her about the Austrian people and whether or not they are good people in terms of environment. I can't ask her that now because we're in London and I probably wouldn't ask about Austria. So be careful about stuff like that. Make sure that you stick to your situation. Don't talk about, well, we in Austria and so on and so forth, because you are not in Austria according to your situation. So she's working for the Environment Agency in London. That is an actual agency, like they exist. They deal with environmental questions and try to make England a more environmentally friendly country at the end of the day. It's her task to travel to schools and companies to inform people about alternative energies, because your agency has the feeling that not everyone knows about it. Today you hold a talk at a secondary college in London, so your target group is like older pupils, older students. The situation could also say you hold a talk at a company. Nobody, like, be interchangeable. So first of all, because we are in the UK and the UK still has active nuclear power plants, you're kind of against it because that's what most people are who are advocates for environmental protection. So there is at least 2 active ones, or that's the ones that I know of. There might be more. In Hunterston and in Hartlepool, there are still active nuclear power plants. You talk about the dangers of fossil fuels and nuclear power stations. Then you talk about the most common forms of alternative energy, which in this case would be sun, water, and wind. That's the ones that we all know, really. Like, we know that there's wind farms out there. We know that we can install solar panels on our roofs. And we also know that water is used to, or has ever since been used to make power, really. If you think about the water wheels, the old ones. But of course, she wouldn't have to be an expert on the topic if she didn't have to be prepared for questions or for some, critical remarks about it. Obviously, there are also disadvantages to the topic. There are drawbacks to alternative energies. Otherwise, we probably would all have them and wouldn't have to use coal or oil, for example, any longer if there weren't any drawbacks. So we'll briefly discuss the disadvantages of the whole thing. Some of them are more obvious than others, but yeah. In the exam, if this was your exam, you would have a text to go with it. That's the link. Is it online already?
It is, yes.
You're so good. Well, yeah, after that we quickly talk about it, and the follow-up discussion would probably, I guess the follow-up discussion in this case is pretty easy, because we would talk about, what do you do, what does your home look like? Do you have solar panels, and so on and so forth. Good.
Okay. Then I will come back again. Here I am. I appeared.
I'm pretty sure all of them out there were just waiting for the moment when you reappear. Be like,
hello,
reintroducing yourself. Still the same person. We didn't.
Yes.
Stuff didn't change. So her second exam tonight, which is kind of an exam marathon, really hard actually. Reminds me of my own oral exams, one after the other, just in different subjects. Good. So we are talking about alternative energies now.
Yes.
Could you, obviously in the situation as we have just heard a second ago, you are from England, or you're not, but you at least live and work there.
Yes.
For an environment agency, but now out of your role, what do you do in real life? Would you care to quickly introduce yourself, please?
Okay, so my name is Marie. I am 21 years old, and I am a carpenter, actually. I work at a carpenter's workshop, and right now I would like to do the maturity exam because I want to open my own carpentry workshop and expand kind of my career, and that's why I need some courses, and that's why I need the maturity exam.
I'm glad to have you here tonight. It's always it always comes in handy to know people like carpenters and electricians and so on and so forth. So I'll definitely let you know, or you let me know your details then, in case I need a good carpenter, or come in handy every now and then. Handymen and handywomen. So we clarified the situation already. So you work for the Environment Agency in London, and we are here at the secondary college, and you're going to tell us something about fossil fuels and the bad nuclear power stations.
Exactly. So we all know that there are fossil fuels and nuclear power stations, and that there's also different alternative forms of energy, but we don't really go into this topic a lot. So we do know that nuclear power stations have the big advantage of producing a lot of energy in a very quick process. But then again, there's so many drawbacks of nuclear power stations, which, for one, the production of energy in a nuclear power station produces so much waste, nuclear waste, that will basically never, it will never 1 second.
Decompose.
Decompose, yes. I was just
That's
hung up, yeah. Yeah, exactly. So it takes a very, 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 very long time to degrade. Basically, it never degrades. So you need to have a lot of space to put all this nuclear waste. Then also there's, which we do all know about, the danger of a nuclear catastrophe. What if something goes wrong, and there's lots of nuclear kind of power that gets loose, and this power, which we don't know about, is actually really, really bad for humans, for nature, for animals. There's lots of diseases that get spread, lots of deformations of animals, of people. Actually, there's lots of bad things that happen, and those kind of effects of a nuclear catastrophe really go on for a very long time, which is a horrible thing that we all realize, or we all experienced when the Fukushima catastrophe happened. So that's one thing that's a really, really big drawback about nuclear power plants. And then also there's fossil fuels, which are really not that good as well. We all use them for heating, for powering our cars and all of that. But fossil fuels are usually quite hard to get to. You usually have to drill deep holes and have lots of space to get to those fuels. And also they will eventually run out. So what if they are no more? What do we do then? Will we just have a third world war about the last few drops of fossil fuel? What will happen? Nobody knows. So that is why we have come up with, or we have found different forms of energy, alternative energy forms, that are way better for the environment and that we can produce ourselves, so as to not run out and not have Third World War. For example, the three biggest ones are solar energy, which we all know, which comes from the sun, and we produce it through solar panels that can be mounted on rooftops, on big spaces that are basically facing the sun. And there's also wind energy, which is produced by these big wind wheels that you can see all around the countryside in countries that are that don't have that many mountains, that have lots of wind. For example, if you would go to Austria, you would see near Vienna, maybe many of you know Vienna, it's quite a big city, that there's lots of wind wheels there, which produce lots of energy. And the third most common alternative energy form is hydropower, which is power made by water. There's different ways to do that. One of them is the tidal power, which is when you use the sea to generate energy. So the tides, as we all know, or as many of you will know, is when the sea goes back and forth, depending on the gravity by the sun and the moon. And through this going back and forth of the sea, you can produce power basically. Another interesting alternative energy form is geothermal energy, which is maybe not known as much, but it's actually when you trap the heat that's inside the Earth's center and you use that to produce energy, which is really interesting, I think. And we could maybe do some more research into that, or get some more information about that. And yeah, so that's the basics about good and bad energies, if you feel like. Is there anything that you would like to talk to me about?
Well, I think I'm just wondering about the geothermal thing. That sounds
Sounds
really
really
interesting.
right?
Like
Yeah.
because the heat's there anyway. Like
Yeah,
there's nothing you have to
exactly.
do. There's
Exactly.
nothing. That sounds like. I wonder why there's not much, or why there's not more. I've never. I know that it's out there, but I've never.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know any countries who really say, well, we power blah blah blah.
I'm sure it
by
will
geothermal.
get bigger through the years.
Hopefully, because as I said, it makes sense. You don't need to erect any wind farms, or
Exactly.
you don't need to install solar panels, or I guess it also doesn't have it's heat. It doesn't have any waste that
exactly.
can
it's
decompose.
there, you can use it. Yeah.
Sounds fun. Also the tidal power thing,
Yeah, I really like the tidal power, the whole concept, because just there, like you can use it. It will happen if you use the power or not. It will just be there.
Yeah. I just have this picture, people waiting. Oh yeah, it's the flood coming. Like we get electricity again. Yeah.
Do you know that place in France where there's a castle out in the sea on a small island, and you can only get to it when the tide is far out? That's always what I have in mind when I think about tide. All of that.
That building, like that castle, should definitely think about working with stuff like that. Back to something a little less fun. You mentioned the nuclear power stations, and we all you're pretty young, so I suppose Fukushima is what you have in mind most. There was also Chernobyl and some other catastrophes.
Of course.
But don't get me wrong, I'm not a fan of nuclear power stations, but don't you think that they got much safer now after Chernobyl and Fukushima? And at the end of the day, it's very cheap. We can. I don't think that everyone can afford solar panels on the roof.
True, and that's the problem. See, I feel like if we would have more funding, for example, for solar panels, or if they would be cheaper, then more people would try this kind of energy out, which really would benefit all of us. And of course, nuclear power plants have gotten more secure, but then again, you can never if something happens, it happens. You can never control that, really. So you really have to ask yourselves, is that really worth it to risk that kind of catastrophe?
Well, I guess at the end, from what I know, we also don't really know what to do with the waste. So because it's just, as you said, you can produce so much and so comparatively cheap to
that's the problem.
But then, well, yeah, that I like the idea of the Third World War and the fossil fuels was kind of But then if you follow politics and it's not that it sounds so.
Yeah, but it could happen. It's really,
definitely
it's possible.
Can you think of any you mentioned solar power, wind, and I always forget about the third one. Water, water wheels and stuff. Can you think of any disadvantages to those? Sun's there, water's there, and wind's there normally.
Well, I'm not sure. Maybe if you don't like the way it looks, maybe if you don't like the way solar panels look, or if you don't like the way the wind wheels look, then I guess that's a disadvantage. As you said, it's not as cheap. It costs a bit more to install the panels, for example. But really, there's so many advantages that I feel like you don't really think about any disadvantage. Or how do you feel?
No, it's all three concepts, apart from, when you happen to live in a country where there's not that much sun,
of course,
you might have a problem at the end of the day.
But
then I guess, I think that every solution to heating with coal and oil and is a good thing.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
But I would probably be with you on the funding thing,
Yeah, that is a big problem, but I guess that could be solved, or at least made a bit easier.
I guess that's where politics comes in. I guess if the governments would do something. As you're working for the Environment Agency, I guess we all suppose that you have a home where there is everything environmentally friendly and fueled by alternative energies. What does your home look like?
Well, on my roof I have big solar panels actually that I get my energy from, which does work very well, even though people might think that in London there's not that much sun, but there is actually. There's enough sun to provide power for my household and myself, which is really a big part that I really wanted to have in my own home, to try and produce my own power, because it can be done, and I'm really proud of that.
I also think that, I think that's the reputation of London's weather is worse than it actually is. So
Exactly,
I guess even in London, it makes sense to like have that.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So I have to say that I really like the idea of geothermal energy, and I would definitely do some more research on it. Thank you very much for your talk and for your enlightening ideas. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Okay, second exam done. Maybe a topic like compared to the first one, those of you who have been with us for the entire show, I guess that there are topics where you can bring in a lot more knowledge. Like in the global warming topic, we could have talked about many more aspects. Like we could have talked about things like the Kyoto Protocol, Trump's refusal of like meeting the climate standards that Obama before him kind of signed and agreed on, and so on and so forth. So that's a topic where you can bring in a lot more of your own knowledge. I guess in topics like alternative energies, nuclear power, and so on and so forth, a more thorough investigation of like a bit more pre-work is kind of necessary, really. So what could be improved? In the follow-up discussion, or maybe already in the role play, you could ask a couple of more questions, because the exam situation is like we're pretending to hold a real-life conversation. Questions should go back and forth, but then I guess in an exam situation that's not that easy. We did have that in the end, so there was one or two questions that she in this case asked me. Maybe write that down on your keyword sheet somewhere, ask questions, highlight it. Those of you who watched streams with me before know that in terms of keyword sheets, I'm a very big fan of highlighters. They help an awful lot. Maybe remind yourself on one of the keyword sheets or on one or two of the keyword sheets to ask questions, because, as I said, it is a dialogue, and also in reality, you hardly ever have dialogues where there's one person asking questions and the second one is answering them, unless you have a dialogue about like a very specific topic or an interview, but that's not what it is here. So try and incorporate as many questions as you can. One thing, but that was my mistake, and too much of a teacher really at the end of the day, I guess. If there's a word that you don't know, I'm not sure if the person, like the interlocutor in the monologue part, would help you or would give you the word. I tried to circumvent it somehow, but then it was a very specific word, and it's kind of quite hard to like circumvent. But in an exam situation, I guess it's okay if you say something like, instead of like the waste doesn't, like nuclear waste doesn't decompose. In an exam situation, you before not saying anything, you can just say, well, we don't know what, but it doesn't go away, whatever, something like circumvent the whole thing.
I actually had noted it down, and then I was thinking about, okay, it's there on my notes,
there on my sheet.
Then you're kind of fixed on that it's really hard to. But
that's the thing.
Problem that you can have in an exam.
That's true. Like sometimes in the preparation, or at least me, like I've done a good many exams in my life, I always thought about the like greatest words, and I have to include them.
Exactly,
and then you're like,
forget.
well, no, didn't really work. Anyway, I'm not sure if your interlocutors would help you out in the monologue part, because that's usually not what if it is a presentation, if the task is a presentation. Hardly ever like people in the audience get up and give you words. Like that's not how things work. So I shouldn't have said anything in that case. I should have let her fend for herself, really. Good. Yeah, but that was actually it, really. Yeah. In such topics, because you know that you have a discussion round or because you know that you have a follow-up, maybe think about something to say about alternative energies. Maybe, say something about what your home looks like. Maybe also, like if you can or if you want to, and if you're not using alternative energies, try and justify why. In any case, be prepared for it. Like it's not, like I guess, alternative energies are not something that we constantly think about or talk about. I think it's easier in the global warming topic, like, in an everyday conversation, you talk about environmental protection, you talk about stuff like that. You don't really talk about alternative energies all too much. So make sure that you also have something personal to say, what your house looks like. If you, by chance attended a school that was very environmentally friendly, there's this type of eco schools out there that really take care about the environment, stuff like that, like a story to tell, especially in the more difficult topics or in the more, challenging topics. I think that's it. Anything you noticed about the exam? Any stupid questions I asked you?
Not really.
Not really?
No.
Proud of myself. In any case, sorry. We will be here again next week, same time, same place. So if you have any questions about the exam, or if you have any questions about a point, that you don't understand, like in the first exam we were talking about globalization. If you happen to not know what globalization really is, and if her answer didn't really make any sense because you don't know what globalization is, feel free to ask. We'll have a look at the questions beforehand. I'll then try to somehow include them. The links to both texts are available online. They're both quite good texts, or so I think. So they might also help you in your preparation for the exam. So see you again, same time, same place next week. Thank you very much and good night.